Hello, I'm Steven School from the Steven School Alchemy YouTube channel. Remember, alchemy is not for human consumption. Do not try this at home. Getting ready to turn up the heat on my alchemy egg experiment. I'm going to get the magnetic stir bar going. This plate heats up pretty quick. I've got it at 40 degrees Celsius and warming up. And I'm going to go higher than that. So this is one of my crystal growing experiments that I've posted updated videos about. And I placed in here the copper nitrate that I made from copper metal with nitric acid. When the reaction stopped, I poured off the liquid, decanted it, and then added it to this vessel, and then I placed sulfur in here. I've tried heating it before, and I've done extensive magnetic stirring with the stir bar, mingling the elements. So now I want to get back to applying heat to it and see what changes we get. If I'm going to unite these two substances, this copper nitrate and the sulfur together, to form a new element perhaps, I think it will have to be done in heat. Okay, so now I've turned the heat up to 50 degrees Celsius, and we'll be climbing above that. As I progress. The stir bar is starting to move the stuff around in there. We'll let that work for a bit. Copper nitrate and sulfur. I'm going to post that in the comments. So I want to unite these two elements. Try to make a stone or a crystal. The stir bar should help dissolve the copper nitrate crystals, and the sulfur should melt in the heat. Raising the heat again. 60 degrees Celsius and climbing. I'm going to share this on Facebook on my main profile page. Stir bar is doing better right there. The share button here says that I can share this to Pinterest. That sounds interesting. Sharing it to LinkedIn. What else we got here? We got Twitter somewhere. All right, the stir bar is doing good. I'm just sharing this to more pages. I know some people asked me to notify them when I go live on YouTube. So I'm going to make sure that it's well publicized. All right. Turn up the stir bar a little bit. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. We're at 70 degrees Celsius. Maybe I should move this closer. You might be able to see the dial a little bit, the temperature indicator. It's going to be interesting to see what changes occur in this vessel. And somebody told me I should wear safety glasses, so I'm going to go grab those real quick. All right. I've got my safety glasses. Turning up the mixing with the stir bar. I'm going to raise the heat 5 degrees. Now it's at 75 degrees Celsius. I'm going to bring a few things here like a magnifying glass. This is a very old one. And a flashlight. Should I take the cork out? What do you guys think? Stir bar didn't like being moved. Let's take the cork out for a little bit. All right. Cork is out. Stir bar is stirring. We're at 75 degrees Celsius. We've got some ventilation going. I'm going to turn this up 5 more degrees. Now it's at 80 degrees Celsius. I'm going to grab my phone, so if it does anything interesting, I can take pictures. Because I'm expecting a high probability of seeing some changes in here. Color changes, and who knows what else. Still have some interesting blue cheers of the sun up here. And they actually look like they may have gotten darker. Let's see. Interesting. All right. Going to add 5 more degrees of heat. Now it's at 85 degrees Celsius. Stir bar is working, mixing the elements. I'm going to look up and see a Celsius to Fahrenheit converter. It says here that 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that means is, sounds like we just had 32 degrees. So 85 degrees Celsius plus 32 degrees Fahrenheit should be 117 degrees Fahrenheit. I think we could go a little bit higher. And I'm going to go 5 degrees more. So that's 90 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're getting somewhere. I need to look up the melting point of sulfur and copper nitrate too. Melting point of sulfur, 239.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So, 239.4 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 240 degrees. Now I'm going to research melting point of copper nitrate. Interesting. It says 238.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that intrigues me because the melting point of the copper nitrate is listed as being almost identical to that of the sulfur. They're very close. Melting point of copper nitrate, 238.1 degrees Fahrenheit. So, I'm going to go back to the Celsius to Fahrenheit converter. Fahrenheit, we want basically 240 degrees. This is saying, okay, so my 32, add 32 degrees calculation may be off because, and this, I don't know if this sounds right, but it says 115 degrees, 115 and a half degrees Celsius is 240 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that's right, but that's what it says. Yeah. 115 degrees, 115 and a half degrees Celsius, it says. Okay. Well, according to my research, I need this to be 115.5 degrees Celsius to do what I want to do. So, I'm not going to turn it up all at once, but I am going to turn it up. I think I should remove the magnetic stir bar. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I think I should remove it. It's doing a good job of stirring, but we're going to be going into higher heat here. Higher heat. All right. Turn the stirrer off. Stir bar is retrieved. Let's see what it looks like. It's got the goo on it. the green slime. All right. Got that removed. And the magnetic stir portion is turned off. Gonna lower my safety glasses. Raise the heat by 5 degrees. 5 degrees, it's 95 degrees Celsius. That means about 20.5 more degrees of heat to reach the desired temperature. The hot plate is starting to feel rather warm. It looks like change is occurring. It looks like perhaps the elements want to separate. It looks like color change, like the yellow and blue are trying to separate. Interesting. The patterns and colors remind me of the planets in the solar system. The way that planets look from outer space and everything. Definitely looks like change is occurring. Definitely. How does that look? All right. I'm going to add 5 more degrees of heat. It's at 100 degrees Celsius. Turning up the heat again. 105 degrees Celsius. 10.5 more degrees. That's where we're going with this. It looks as if more changes. There are changes. There's a pattern forming in the shape of veins like blood vessels. Interesting. Right. Raising the heat 5 more degrees. 110 degrees Celsius. Only 5.5 more degrees higher to go. And theoretically, it should be melting. Of course, if it forms a new compound, that could very well change the melting point. But the two individual compounds should be melting at 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not far away. I just raised the heat another 5 degrees. 115 degrees Celsius is where it's going now. I wonder if I can do a smaller adjustment. No, it seems to like 5 degree increments. All right. So I'll leave it at 115 degrees for now. At 115 degrees Celsius, according to this, is 239 degrees Fahrenheit. That, according to internet research, is enough to melt copper nitrate crystals. But the sulfur would need 0.4 degrees more. Do not try this at home. This is Alchemy of Steven School. And this is experimental research. So there's no telling what could happen. That's why I say don't try it at home. These elements could easily make fumes. One thing I've noticed, it seems to me that when I apply heat, the copper nitrate crystals seem to get harder. Perhaps they do that on their own over time. But I know when I heated this over a propane flame before, in a previous video, after that the crystals were really solidified. I'm going to add 5 degrees of heat, 120 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to get more ventilation going as well. Well, the heat should be at the melting point for these substances. It should be just a little bit above the melting point. It is starting to look a little different. The matter still contains liquid. That's probably why the reaction is not as speedy as one might expect. The colors are really, hopefully you can see that. Interesting colors down here. The shade of blue is interesting to me. But there's also a hint of green. It's like the elements don't want to mix, like they're at enmity with one another. I'm seeing what appears to be crystallization going on right there. From here, it reminds me of the inside of a geode. The colors at the bottom look interesting. Like it's changing from blue and yellow to a blue-green down where the heat is. Yes, I see something interesting. Gonna have to keep an eye on this. If I was outdoors, I could turn the heat up more and expedite the reaction, but I don't have any internet outside, so I would not be able to live stream. What is my goal with the experiment? Okay, I'm going to tell you. I took copper metal, reacted it with nitric acid. When the reaction was done, I decanted the solution and had liquid copper nitrate, which crystallized on its own, leading me to research online, and I came up with the water of crystallization, which was interesting. I put that solution in this flask and I added sulfur. I'm trying to unite the two to see what happens, what changes occur. Does it create a stone or a crystal? And then I'm thinking I want to test it, do some testing with it, maybe test it on metal, see what it'll do to metal. And so I kind of stirred the things up really good together, the elements with a magnetic stir bar. But to unite them, from what I've seen, it will probably most likely need to be done in heat. So that's why I've been raising the heat by degrees over here. Trying to melt the two together. There still is some liquid solution in there, so that's probably also slowing down the reaction. But I Googled this and I checked the melting point of sulfur. It says 239.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and the melting point of copper nitrate crystals 238.1 degrees Fahrenheit. They're almost the same. And I used an online Celsius to Fahrenheit converter, and it says I need to be at 115.5 degrees Celsius to achieve 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which should cover the melting point of the sulfur and the copper nitrate crystals. Now, if they fuse together and form a new element, that could, in my opinion, change the melting point. And who knows what type of reactions will occur. This part right here is interesting. It reminds me of the inside of a geode. And there's colors, there's changes occurring down here in the bottom. It's still got liquid in it. The sulfur seems to be changing. The color of the liquid seems to be changing. It's going to be interesting to do some testing after this and see what the qualities of the sulfur are, because sulfur is flammable. One of the theories of alchemy, as far as the metallic transmutation of lead into gold, one of the theories was that sulfur was needed to be inserted into the molten lead as the nucleus of the atom. But the problem with it is that sulfur is combustible, so if it's added to molten lead, it burns and creates carbon. So alchemists had a term called sulfur incombustible, and some people theorize that the whole secret of metallic transmutation concerning lead into gold, aside from whether it's true or not, we all have our own opinions on that. Some people think that, or some alchemists may have thought that it revolved around changing the sulfur in such a way that it becomes not combustible, but changing combustible sulfur into sulfur incombustible. so that it is not affected by heat or fire. There's changes going on in the neck of the flask. Material clumping up and taking on sort of an Easter egg color. It's still got liquid in it. I can see reaction occurring. Definitely. Look at the bottom of the flask. Reaction is occurring there. Reaction is definitely occurring. The liquid level must be dissipating. The color change seems to be expediting as far as the yellow and blue creating green down at the bottom. It looks as though the sulfur is melting along with the copper nitrate crystals, but it looks like they're still somewhat at enmity with one another, perhaps not wanting to mix, but yet at the same time it looks like they could be mixing. The liquid is being expelled from the bottom of the flask towards the surface where we see this blue liquid up here, and then it drips back down to the bottom of the flask, kind of like repeating nature's rain cycle. I wonder if I can get the computer closer. Maybe we can get a better look at what's going on in here. Definitely see some changes. Right up there where this bubble is, changes are occurring in there. It looks like they're uniting. It looks like the copper nitrate and sulfur are uniting in the bottom down there. It looks like they don't want to unite. They don't readily unite, but it looks like they are slowly being accustomed to each other. See if I can get better lighting. Better lighting. Does the lighting look different? This flashlight seems like it's a bit too bright directly on it. Well, I see changes occurring in the glass. So I think what I'll do is just let it go for a few minutes and see what happens. This is interesting because if you've ever looked at the book, The Great Work Photographed, the color changes seen in the egg, they remind me of what I'm seeing here, except these are different colors than what is depicted in that book. I do have to be careful with the heat because fumes of burning sulfur, most people say that they're highly toxic. So I don't want to burn it and I don't want any fumes. And you know what? It smells like it's starting to make fumes. I can start to smell it, so I'm turning it off and removing it from the heat. I'm going to have to figure a way to resume this experiment outside at a later date because the level of heat is getting to be too much. However, when this cools off, I may be able to examine it and see what kind of changes we've got. But for now, we're going to have to stop here and end this stream. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.